Stop scrolling. I mean it. Not because I demand your attention like a debt collector, but because what was sent to you today has already arrived, and you almost missed it. You felt something shift this morning. Don't pretend you didn't. That strange weight in your chest when you woke up. That quiet hum behind your thoughts, like a radio playing static just beneath the floorboards. You told yourself it was nothing. Bad sleep, too much coffee, another Tuesday. But you know better. You've always known better. Something was delivered to you today. Not a package, not a letter, not a text message that pings with false urgency. This came through a different kind of door. One you forgot you had. One you sealed shut years ago with distraction, with noise, with the exhausting business of surviving. That door just opened, and what walked through is not here to frighten you. It's here to finish something. Let me be honest with you, because I have not been fully honest with you before. Not because I wanted to lie, but because you weren't ready to hear the whole truth without breaking. And I don't break what I'm trying to save. So I waited. Through every wrong turn, through every night you cried into a pillow and asked if anyone was listening. Through every time you said, I can't do this anymore, and then did it anyway. I waited. Not because I am patient in the way humans mean patient, grinning through gritted teeth. No. I waited because the delivery could not happen until your hands were empty enough to hold it. Today, your hands are empty. You've been feeling it for weeks. That low-grained grief you couldn't name. That sense that something was ending, even while everything looked normal. Friends didn't notice. Neither did your reflection. But deep down, in the part of you that doesn't lie, you knew. The old version of you is packing its bags. That's not loss. That's room being made. What was delivered today is not a solution to your problems. It's not a sudden healing that erases every scar. It's something harder and better. It's the truth about where you've really been standing all this time. You've been standing at a door that was always locked until today. And the reason I couldn't tell you this yesterday? Because yesterday, you would have turned it into anxiety. You would have tried to force the door open with your own panic. You would have searched for signs everywhere like a detective losing sleep. And you would have missed the actual moment. This is the actual moment. I am not raising my voice. I don't need to. The heaviness you feel reading these words, that's not fear. That's recognition. Your spirit knows what your mind is still trying to deny. Something has shifted. Something has been handed to you. And you are not imagining it. Let me tell you what was delivered. Not an answer to every question. Not a map with every road highlighted, but a key. A single quiet key that fits exactly one lock on the part of you that has been waiting to wake up. You've been sleepwalking through a life that felt half real, doing the right things, saying the right things, smiling when you were supposed to, but inside, a dull ache. A feeling that you were missing your own existence by inches, that everyone else got a script and you got blank pages. That ends now. Not because I'm angry, not because you failed, but because the silence I placed around you, the confusion, the delays, the prayers that seemed to bounce off the ceiling, that silence was not rejection. It was incubation. You were not forgotten. You were being hidden until the right season, and the season just turned. I know you want details. You want to know what happens next. You want a schedule, a promise, a date on the calendar when everything makes sense. I won't give you that, because that's not faith. That's a transaction. You are a child waking up from a long, strange dream. But here is what I will give you: the certainty that this message found you on purpose. Not an algorithm, not chance, not your restless 2 a.m. curiosity. I pulled your attention here like a hand on your shoulder in a crowded room. You could have scrolled past. You could have closed the tab. You didn't, because something in you recognized the voice. That's enough for now. Don't ask me to explain everything in the next 5 minutes. You wouldn't believe me if I did. And honestly, you wouldn't understand it yet. Some truths have to be absorbed slowly, like water into dry ground. If I poured the whole ocean over you right now, you'd drown in information and miss the meaning. So we will do this differently, piece by piece, word by word. And you will stay with me, not because I demand it, but because for the first time in a long time, someone is finally telling you the truth. Here is the truth you can hold right now. Something was delivered to you today. It is real. It is not your imagination, and it will not leave you the way other things have left. You are not being prepared for a small life. Now breathe. Just breathe. Let that sit in your chest like a stone dropped into still water. Watch the ripples. We have more to say, but not yet. First, you need to feel the weight of what just arrived. So pause the need to rush ahead. Pause the need to understand everything. Just sit here with me for a moment longer. And when you're ready, we'll go deeper. Because this delivery came with instructions, and you've never read anything like what comes next. You're still here. Good. Not because you passed a test, but because something in you already knows that turning away now would feel like walking out of a room in the middle of your own name being called. So let me say what couldn't be said yesterday, last week, last year. Let me speak into the quiet you've been carrying like a bruise you keep pressing on. The delivery that arrived today is not a single thing. It's a cluster. It's a seed packet, not a harvest. And the first thing inside that packet is something you lost so long ago you forgot you ever had it. Permission to stop pretending. You have been performing strength for so long that the performance became your personality. You have been saying "I'm fine" to people who wouldn't know your real face if it sat down at their dinner table. And I have watched you do this without anger, without disappointment, with something closer to grief, because I know what it costs you to wake up every day and wear a mask that doesn't fit. That mask cracked today, not because you dropped it, because the delivery included a weight that pressed against it from the inside. What was delivered to you spiritually is the beginning of the end of your hiding, and hiding is not always running away. Sometimes hiding is staying busy, staying useful, staying necessary, staying so tangled in other people's problems that you never have to sit alone with your own. You have been a master of that. I've watched you rescue, fix, carry, and console everyone within reach. And every time you did, you told yourself that was love. Some of it was, Most of it was escape. You cannot serve from emptiness forever. And the emptiness you've been running from is not a monster. It's a room I built inside you specifically for this moment. A room you were never meant to furnish with achievement or applause or the approval of people who don't even know their own hearts. That room has been waiting, cold, dark, unvisited. And today, I turned on the light in that room. That's the heaviness you felt this morning. That's the strange stillness that followed you from your bed to your coffee to this scream. The light in the empty room. Not punishment, not a diagnosis. Just the sudden, shocking clarity of seeing what you've been ignoring. And here is what the light reveals. You have been living someone else's version of your life. Not a bad version, not a failed version, but a borrowed one. You took expectations like hand-me-down clothes and wore them until they frayed. You built decisions on what would cause the least conflict, not on what would wake you up in the morning with a pulse of real hunger. You traded your own voice for the safety of agreement, and I let you, because I knew that safety would eventually become its own cage, and you would eventually feel the bars. You're feeling them now. That's not despair. That's orientation. Every trapped thing first panics, then pauses, then looks for the way out. You are in the pause. Do not mistake the pause for the end. The delivery that arrived today is not a crisis, and clarification always feels like confrontation at first, because you've been living in a fog so long that clear air burns your lungs. But breathe it anyway. The fog kept you numb. The fog kept you compliant. The fog let you walk past your own reflection without asking why you didn't recognize the face staring back. The fog is lifting now, not because I am cruel, because I am honest. And honesty without love is just brutality dressed as wisdom. But love without honesty is just a slow poison. So here is the honest love you needed years ago. You were never supposed to figure it all out by yourself. That was never the plan. The plan was always that you would reach the end of your own understanding and find me there. Not as a concept, not as a Sunday school answer, but as the quiet pressure behind your rib cage that never left, no matter how far you wandered. You have wandered far, further than you even admit to yourself in the dark. And I never chased you. I never shouted. I just stayed. Like a door left unlocked. Like a light left on in a house you forgot you owned. Today you walked back toward that house, not because you were brave, because the borrowed life finally exhausted you. And exhaustion is not failure. Exhaustion is the end of pretending. Let me tell you something that might sound strange. I am not impressed by your striving. I never was. I am not moved by how much you produce, how well you perform, how neatly you keep your pain packaged so no one has to see it. What moves me is the moment you stop, the moment you sit down in the middle of the wreckage and say, I can't anymore. That's not surrender to defeat. That's surrender to truth. And truth is the only thing I have ever wanted from you. Not your accomplishments, not your polished testimony, just your actual, unvarnished, sometimes ugly, sometimes hopeful, always tired, real self. That self was delivered back to you today, wrapped in confusion, tied with a bow of uncertainty, but real. For the first time in years, you are standing in something real. The dreams you stopped dreaming, the questions you stopped asking, the version of you that laughed without checking who was watching. All of that was not lost. It was just buried under the weight of survival. And survival is ending. Not because life will get easier, because you will stop measuring your worth by how well you endure. You were made for more than endurance. You were made for aliveness. And aliveness is messy. It doesn't schedule well. It doesn't apologize for needing rest. It doesn't perform for applause. Aliveness just is, like a tree growing toward light without explaining itself to the other trees. That's what the delivery is finally giving you permission to become. Not a better version of the old you, a different version entirely. One that doesn't need to be liked by everyone. One that can say no without a novel of explanation. One that can sit in silence without filling it with noise. One that can receive without immediately trying to pay back. You have been terrible at receiving. I know. Every time I sent something good, you immediately asked what you owed. Every time someone loved you, you calculated when they would leave. Every time a door opened, you assumed a trap was waiting on the other side. That wasn't wisdom. That was wound. And the wound is real. I never said it wasn't. But a wound is not an identity. It's a location. And you have lived at that location for too long. Today, the delivery included a key to leave. Not to escape the pain of the past. To stop building your future on its foundation. The past is not your enemy. It's your teacher. And teachers don't stay in the room forever. At some point, you take the lesson and you walk out the door. The door is open now. Can you feel the draft? That's not anxiety. That's invitation. You don't have to walk through it today. You don't have to understand the whole path. You just have to stop pretending the door isn't there. That's what the delivery asked of you. Not a grand decision, not a dramatic prayer, just honesty. Just a whispered, I see it, I feel it, I'm scared, but I see it. That whisper is louder to me than all your years of shouting for help while refusing to be helped. So sit with that for a moment. The door is open, the light is on, and the version of you that you thought died years ago is not dead. It's been waiting in that room. It's been waiting for you to stop running. It's been waiting for this exact second. And it is not angry at how long you took. It's just glad you finally arrived. Now we arrive at the part of the message you have been secretly dreading. Not because it will accuse you, not because it will shame you, but because it will ask you to admit something you have spent years denying. You knew. You always knew. Long before the delivery arrived today, long before the heaviness settled into your chest, long before the door creaked open in that forgotten room, you knew something was wrong. Not wrong with the world, wrong with the agreement you made. Somewhere along the way, without a formal ceremony or a signed contract, you agreed to live small. You agreed to want less than you were made for. You agreed to call it humility when it was really fear. You agreed to call it patience when it was really paralysis. And I watched you make those agreements. I watched you nod your head at a life that fit like shoes, 2 sizes too small. I watched you tell yourself that everyone feels this way, that this is just what adulthood costs, that wanting more is greed, and feeling more is drama, and asking for more is dangerous. Who taught you that? Not me. I never said your hunger was ugly. I never said your questions were disrespectful. I never said your heart was too much. Other people with their own unhealed wounds, their own small imaginations, their own terror of what might happen if you actually woke up and started living like you believed you were worthy of a full life. They projected their fear onto you, and you, because you were young or tired or desperate to belong, you caught that fear like a virus, and you have been sick with it ever since. The delivery today is the antidote. But antidotes don't taste sweet. They don't go down easy. They burn on the way in because they have to reach places that have been numb for decades. So let me be direct. The silence you experienced from me was not my absence. It was my restraint. Every time you begged for a sign and heard nothing, I was holding back. Because if I had answered the way you wanted, with fireworks, with voices, with undeniable proof, you would have obeyed out of fear, not love. And obedience without love is just a hostage situation. I never wanted a hostage. I wanted a daughter, someone who chooses to turn toward me, not because the evidence is overwhelming, but because something in them recognizes something in me. That recognition cannot be forced. It cannot be rushed. It can only be waited for. And I waited. Through your cynical years, through your angry years, through the years you told anyone who would listen that you were done with all of this spiritual nonsense. I waited because I knew what you didn't know, that your anger was not rejection, it was disappointment. You had been promised a version of me that didn't exist, a vending machine god, a cosmic butler, a safety net that catches every fall. And when that version failed you, you threw the whole thing out. I don't blame you. I would have done the same. But here is what you couldn't see then, that you are beginning to see now. The version of me you rejected was never me. It was a cartoon, a religious caricature drawn by people who had never sat in the dark with their own failure. The real me is not threatened by your doubt. The real me is not offended by your questions. The real me sat with Job while he demanded answers. The real me let David scream psalms that would make a modern church faint. The real me is not fragile. Your honesty does not make me nervous. Your rage does not make me leave. What makes me leave is pretense. What makes me go silent is performance. And you stopped performing somewhere in the last year. You stopped saying the right prayers with the wrong heart. You stopped showing up to places where you felt nothing. You stopped pretending that a building or a ritual or a label could contain what was happening inside you. That was not backsliding. That was undressing. You were taking off costumes that never fit. And I was not offended. I was relieved. Because now, finally, we could talk. Not as a subject to a monarch. Not as a sinner to a judge, but as a real person to the real source of their existence. That is what the delivery today finally made possible. Not a religion, not a doctrine, not a set of rules to follow, just contact, just the raw, unsettling, beautiful fact that you are not alone in your own life. There has been a presence with you in every dark hallway, every sleepless night, every moment you whispered, "I don't know if I can keep doing this." That presence was not your conscience. It was not your higher self. It was not the universe sending good vibes. It was me, and I have never left, even when you begged me to, even when you slammed the door and threw the bolt and painted the windows black. I stayed, not because I'm stubborn, because I am your origin. You cannot lose what you came from any more than a wave can lose the ocean. You can forget, you can deny, you can build entire philosophies on the idea that the ocean doesn't exist. But the tide still moves in your chest, the salt is still in your blood, and today the tide came back in. That is what the heaviness is. That is what the strange stillness is. The water returning to a dry creek bed. The memory returning to a forgetful child. You are not being invaded. You are being remembered. And the remembering is uncomfortable because it requires you to admit that you have been living as an orphan when you have always had a home. Orphans fight differently. They hoard, they scheme, they trust no one, they celebrate nothing fully because they are always waiting for the other shoe to drop. That has been you for years. Celebrating with one eye open, loving with one hand on the exit door, achieving but never arriving, winning but never resting, because orphans don't know how to rest. Rest requires a father who stays. Rest requires a mother who doesn't leave. And you have not trusted that. Not really. You have trusted your own vigilance, your own planning, your own ability to see disaster coming 3 exits away. And that vigilance has kept you safe, but it has also kept you small. Because you cannot grow in a crouch. You cannot expand while bracing for impact. The delivery today included an unclenching, a release of the muscles you didn't even know you were holding tight. That release feels like danger at first, like falling, like losing control, but it is not any of those things. It is the first breath you have taken in years that was not calculated. The first exhale that didn't measure the cost. You are not falling, you are being caught, and the hands catching you have been there the whole time. You just refuse to stop flailing long enough to feel them. So stop flailing now, just for a moment, just for the length of this sentence. Let your shoulders drop, let your jaw unclench. Let the story you have been telling yourself about how alone you are dissolve like fog in morning light. That story served you once. It protected you. It explained why love felt conditional and safety felt temporary. But the story is not true anymore. It was just the best you could do with the information you had. Now you have more information. Now you have the delivery, and the delivery says, you are not an orphan. You were never an orphan. You were only lost. And being lost is not a life sentence. It is a location, and locations can be left. We need to talk about the silence, not the silence you thought was rejection, the other silence, the one you created. You want to list every reason why staying silent felt necessary, why speaking up felt dangerous, why your voice still feels like a foreign object in your own throat. And all of that is real. All of that is true. But truth does not cancel out deeper truth. And the deeper truth is this: at some point, the danger passed and the silence remained. At some point, the threat left the room, and you kept whispering. At some point, the door opened, and you stayed in the corner. Not because you were still trapped, because you had learned the trap so well that freedom felt like a threat. That is what trauma does. That is what betrayal does. That is what a lifetime of being told you are too much or not enough finally produces. Adult who cannot speak their own name without flinching. The delivery that arrived today includes a new instruction, not a suggestion, an instruction. You must begin to speak, not to crowds, not on a stage, not in a way that performs vulnerability for applause. Just to one person, just to a page, just to the mirror, just to me in the dark when no one else is listening. You must give voice to what has been living in your chest like an unwanted tenant. The disappointment, the rage, the grief you were told to get over, the dreams you buried without a funeral, the love you gave that was never returned, the apologies you are still waiting to receive. All of it. It has been sitting in that room with the light on, waiting for you to name it. Because unnamed things have power over you. Named things can be faced. Named things can be held. Named things can eventually be released. But you cannot release what you refuse to acknowledge. You have been carrying a backpack full of stones for years, insisting you didn't feel the weight. That ends now, not because I am punishing you, because the weight is breaking your spine, and I need you upright for what comes next. What comes next is not a punishment. It is not a test. It is not a trial you have to pass to earn my love. What comes next is a season of unburying, and unburying is messy. It smells like old grief. It looks like things you thought were dead. It feels like shame and relief happening at the exact same time. You will unbury the version of yourself that you locked away when someone told you that you weren't creative enough, strong enough, worthy enough. You will unbury the anger you swallowed to keep the peace. You will unbury the questions you were told were sinful to ask, and none of this unburying will be tidy. None of it will fit into a 7-step program or a 30-day challenge. It will look like you sobbing in your car. It will look like sentences you write and then delete and then write again. It will look like walking away from relationships that were never safe, but always familiar. It will look ugly before it looks beautiful. Do not let that scare you. Every birth is ugly. Every emergence is violent in its tenderness. The butterfly does not apologize for the mess of the cocoon, and you will not apologize for the mess of becoming real. Here is what I need you to understand about the silence you have been living in. It was not humility. It was self-erasure. And self-erasure is not a virtue. It is a slow suicide of the soul. You were not made to disappear. You were made to take up space. Not arrogantly, not at the expense of others, but truly, fully, like a tree that does not ask permission to grow toward the sun, like a river that does not apologize for flowing to the sea. Your existence is not an inconvenience. Your voice is not an interruption. Your needs are not a burden. Someone taught you otherwise. Someone with their own unhealed wounds handed you a script that said, "You are too much and you are not enough," in the same breath, trapping you in a contradiction you could never resolve. I am handing you a new script today. It has only 3 words. You are mine, not mine to command, mine to love, mine to hold, mine to send into the world with a spine of steel and a heart of flesh. That is what the delivery finally gives you permission to become. Not a smaller version of yourself, a truer one. And the truer version of you does not whisper. The truer version of you does not apologize for existing. The truer version of you does not shrink to make others comfortable. The truer version of you speaks, not loudly, not harshly, but clearly, without the preamble of self-deprecation, without the footnotes of apology, without the endless explaining that really means please don't reject me. You have been explaining yourself for years, explaining your choices, your pain, your boundaries, your needs, explaining to people who never asked, explaining to people who never listened, explaining to people who used your explanations as weapons against you. No more. From now on, you speak your truth once, then you stop. You do not defend your own wounds. You state what is true for you, and you let the silence that follows be someone else's problem. That is what strength looks like. Not aggression, not dominance, just the quiet, immovable certainty that you exist and you matter, and you will not spend your remaining years begging to be seen by people who have decided to be blind. The delivery today included a pair of scissors, not to cut others off, to cut the cords of performance. You have been performing for an audience that doesn't even like the show. You have been dancing for critics who have no rhythm of their own. You have been exhausting yourself trying to be understood by people who are committed to misunderstanding. Take the scissors. Cut the cord, not in anger, in finality, in the calm recognition that your energy is finite, and you have wasted enough of it on empty rooms. What comes next requires your full presence, not your exhaustion, not your resentment, just your full, awake, unapologetic self. And that self has been waiting in the wings for years, watching you perform a role that was never yours. The understudy is done. The lead has arrived. Speak your first real line. It does not have to be perfect. It just has to be true. You are closer than you think to the thing you have been afraid to name. Not a breakthrough, not a miracle, not a sudden reversal of every hardship. Something quieter and more permanent. An ending. Not the kind of ending that leaves you empty. The kind of ending that finally makes sense of the story you have been living without understanding. Every page you turned in confusion, every chapter that felt like a detour, every paragraph that seemed to belong to someone else's book, all of it has been leading to this single sentence. And the sentence is this: you were never lost. You were always being guided. But the guidance did not look like guidance, because you expected a map and you were given a wilderness. You expected a flashlight and you were given a match. You expected a companion and you were given long stretches of solitary road where the only sound was your own breathing. That was not cruelty. That was training. And the training is almost complete. The delivery that arrived today is not just a key and a light and a pair of scissors. It is also a graduation, not the kind with caps and gowns and applause, the kind where you look back at everything you survived and realize you are not the same person who entered the fire. That person would have panicked at this message. That person would have clicked away after the first paragraph, convinced it was too heavy, too strange, too much. That person is gone, not because they died, because they grew up. And growing up in the Spirit is not about accumulating beliefs or mastering rituals. It is about becoming someone who can hold paradox without breaking. Someone who can believe that I am good and that life is hard at the same time. Someone who can trust that a door is opening even when every visible sign says otherwise. Someone who can sit in the question without demanding an immediate answer. You have become that person. Slowly, painfully, without anyone standing over you with a progress chart. But I have seen every inch of growth. I have watched you choose honesty over comfort. I have watched you stay in the room when every instinct told you to flee. I have watched you refuse to numb yourself with the old distractions, even when the numbness felt like mercy. And I am not disappointed that it took this long. I am not impatient with the pace of your becoming. Trees do not apologize for taking decades to reach their full height. Neither should you. But here is what you need to hear in this moment, in this part of the message. When your eyes are tired and your heart is raw, the ending that is coming is not a punishment for any sin you think you committed. It is not karma swinging back around. It is not me finally losing patience with your mistakes. The ending is simply the natural conclusion of a season, and seasons do not end because you did something wrong. They end because they are finished. Like autumn does not apologize for following summer. Like night does not beg forgiveness for arriving after dusk. Something in your life is finished. You have felt it stirring for months. That quiet knowing that a chapter is closing, that a door is swinging shut, that a relationship or a job or a location or an identity has done its work and is now releasing you. You have been gripping it tighter, trying to keep it alive through sheer will. You have been performing CPR on something that is ready to rest. Let it go. Not because you don't care, because you care enough to stop forcing. Love does not cling. Love releases when release is the kindest thing. And the kindest thing right now is to let this ending happen without fighting it. I know you are afraid of what comes after. Every human is afraid of the blank page. Every human dreads the silence after the last note. But the blank page is not your enemy. It is your invitation. And the silence is not abandonment. It is the space where something new can finally be heard. You have been living in noise for so long. The noise of other people's expectations, the noise of your own anxious thoughts, the noise of a culture that never stops screaming for your attention. That noise has been a prison dressed up as busyness. The ending you are facing will feel like a sudden quiet, and that quiet will terrify you at first. You will reach for your phone, for a task, for a conversation, for anything to fill the empty air. Resist that urge. Sit in the quiet. Let it teach you what no sermon ever could. The quiet is where I speak, not in thunder, not in earthquakes, not in fires, in a still, small voice that you have been too distracted to hear. The ending is clearing the room so that voice can finally reach you. Do not waste this clearing. The delivery today included a warning wrapped in a promise. The warning is that some things are ending whether you agree or not. You cannot negotiate your way back into a season that has expired. You cannot pray away the natural conclusion of a cycle that has completed itself. I will not resurrect what I am allowing to die, because resurrection is for things that still have purpose. And this thing, this job, this relationship, this version of yourself, this way of understanding the world, its purpose is finished. It carried you as far as it could. It taught you what it was meant to teach. Now it is becoming an idol, and I will not share your heart with an idol, even a comfortable one. So I am allowing the ending, not with anger, with the same tenderness a parent feels when they take the training wheels off a bicycle. You will wobble, you might fall, but you will learn to ride. And the riding is the point, not the falling. The promise that comes with the warning is this: what is ending is making room for what is beginning. Not more of the same, not a slightly improved version of what you lost. Something you cannot yet imagine. Something that would have frightened you 6 months ago because you weren't strong enough to receive it. You are strong enough now, not because you have conquered every weakness, because you have stopped pretending you have no weaknesses. That is the strength that matters. The strength of honesty, the strength of surrender, the strength of saying, I don't know what comes next, but I am willing to find out. That sentence is the password to the new room. The room you have been waiting for your whole life. The room where you are not performing, not pretending, not protecting. The room where you simply exist in my presence like a child resting against a parent's chest, listening to the heartbeat that has been keeping time with your own since before you were born. The ending is the door to that room. Walk through it, not because you are brave, because you are tired of standing in hallways, because you are tired of knocking on doors that were never going to open, because you are finally desperate enough to try something you cannot control. Desperation is not weakness. Desperation is the end of illusion, and the end of illusion is the beginning of truth. So let the ending come. Do not prop open the door that is closing. Do not stand in the doorway shivering, trying to keep one foot in each season. Choose. Step across the threshold. Leave behind what is finished, and trust that the ground beneath your other foot is not empty air. It has been there all along. You just could not see it because you were looking backward. Look forward now. The delivery is complete. The instruction is clear. The ending is not your enemy. It is your usher. This is the part where most messages would tell you what to do next. They would give you 3 steps, 5 principles, a 7-day plan to manifest your breakthrough. I am not going to do that. Not because I don't have answers, because the answers you need right now are not instructions. They are permissions. And the most important permission I can give you is this: you do not have to earn what is coming. You do not have to fix yourself before you receive it. You do not have to become a better person, a holier person, a more disciplined or more deserving person. The delivery that arrived today was not a reward for good behavior. It was not a prize for winning some spiritual competition you didn't know you were entered in. It was a gift, pure, unearned, almost offensive in its generosity. And that offends something deep in you, doesn't it? Some part of you that was raised on transaction. Some part of you that believes love must be purchased, that safety must be negotiated, that grace is for people who have their lives together. Not slightly wrong, completely wrong. And the fact that it feels wrong to you, the fact that you are squirming inside as you read these words, that squirming is not conviction. It is addiction. An addiction to unworthiness. You have been drinking unworthiness like water for so long that your body thinks it's necessary for survival. You've built an entire identity around not being enough, and that identity is terrified of what I am saying right now. Because if grace is real, if unearned love is real, if the delivery truly requires nothing from you but your presence, then who are you? What remains of the story you've been telling yourself? Who are you without the constant low-grade anxiety that you are falling short? You are someone new, someone you have not met yet, someone who breathes differently, someone who sleeps through the night, someone who fails without collapsing, someone who receives without immediately calculating the debt. That person is not a fantasy. That person is your actual self, buried under years of false programming, and the delivery today was the excavation, not the full unearthing, just the first shovel breaking ground. But that first break is everything. It changes the terrain. It lets air into places that have been sealed shut. It lets light fall on things that have only known darkness. And the things that crawl out from under that light, the shame, the guilt, the old accusations, the voices that told you you would never be enough, they will hiss and scatter. Not because you fought them, because you stopped feeding them. Unworthiness cannot survive in the presence of unearned love. It needs you to believe that love is conditional. It needs you to keep striving, keep performing, keep checking invisible boxes. The moment you rest in the truth that you are already held, the whole parasitic system begins to starve. That is what the delivery is really doing. It is not giving you a new task. The burden of proving. The burden of earning. The burden of being good enough for a love that was never transactional to begin with. You have been trying to pay a debt that does not exist. You have been trying to impress someone who is already fascinated by you. You have been trying to earn a place in a house where you have always had a room. And the key that was delivered today, it is not the key to a new door. It is the key to the door you have been standing in front of your whole life, insisting you were locked out. You were never locked out. You were just knocking wrong. You were knocking with performance instead of presence. You were knocking with good behavior instead of honest need. You were knocking with your resume when all I wanted was your attention. Turn the key, walk inside, and do not apologize for the state you are in. Do not apologize for the mess you are bringing with you. Do not apologize for the tears, the anger, the confusion, the unfinished business, the questions that have no answers. This house was built for exactly that mess. It was built for you, not for a polished version of you that does not exist, not for a future version of you that has finally figured everything out. For this version, right now, with the dark circles under your eyes and the knot in your stomach and the half-believing, half-desperate hope that maybe, just maybe, this message is real. It is real. I am real, and I am not disappointed by what I see when I look at you. I am not scanning for flaws. I am not keeping a list of your failures. I am not comparing you to someone else who prays better or believes louder or suffers more gracefully. I am looking at you the way an artist looks at their work just before signing it, not because it is perfect, because it is finished in the way that matters. The finishing is not about flawlessness, it is about authenticity. And you, after all these years of hiding and pretending and performing, are finally becoming authentic. That is what the delivery has been working toward. Not your happiness, not your success, not your comfort, your authenticity. Because an authentic person can handle anything. An authentic person does not shatter when the floor drops. An authentic person does not need to control outcomes to feel safe. An authentic person simply is. And that simple being is the most powerful force in the world. More powerful than armies. More powerful than economies. More powerful than every empire that has ever crumbled to dust. Because authenticity is the image of me. And I am not fragile. I am not threatened. I am not worried about the future. And you, becoming authentic, are becoming like me. Not in arrogance, in quiet, unshakable truth. So here is what comes next. Not a plan, not a promise that every problem will vanish, but a certainty. You will never be the same after this message. Something in you has shifted permanently. You cannot unread these words. You cannot unfeel the weight of this delivery. And you will try. In the next few days, you will try to forget. You will scroll, you will distract, you will tell yourself it was just a video, just words, just another spiritual experience that fades like a dream upon waking. But it will not fade. Because this was not content. This was contact, and contact changes things. You will find yourself pausing in the middle of ordinary moments, washing dishes, sitting in traffic, lying in the dark before sleep, and you will remember. You will remember that something was delivered to you, that a door opened, that a light turned on in a room you forgot you had, that a voice spoke without sound and said your name without words. That voice will keep speaking, not in dramatic revelations, in quiet nudges, in strange coincidences, in dreams that linger, in sentences that arrive fully formed from somewhere you cannot locate. Pay attention. Not with desperation, with curiosity, with the open-handed wonder of someone who has finally admitted they do not have all the answers. That admission is not weakness.